This isn't just a story about cryptocurrency. It's a story about a promise of a brand new financial world. And it's a story of a devastating betrayal, one that cost everyday people everything they had and exposed truth far darker than any of them could have ever imagined.
3 simple words. That was the mantra, the call to arms from Celsius founder AlexMashinsky. And the idea? It was seductive. Leave the old, broken banking system behind. Step into a new world that actually works for you, the little guy.
And this is what was left when that promise was shattered into a million pieces. $4.7 billion. And make no mistake, that's not just some corporate debt. That's the money owed to the customers, the people who believed.
June 12, 2022, that's the day the dream died. 1.7 million people from every corner of the globe woke up to find themselves locked out. Their money, their assets, their entire future just gone.
So how in the world did we get here, right? How does a company that sold itself as the bright future of finance become one of its most catastrophic failures? To really get it, you have to understand the 2 completely different realities of Celsius, the one they sold you and the one they were hiding.
The sales pitch was, let's be honest, almost impossible to resist. This wasn't just a place to hold your crypto. No, this was a platform that made your money work for you. They were offering yields up to 17%. I mean, that's completely unheard of in the traditional world. They sold you on a community, a real movement, and they wrapped it all up by calling it the safest place for your crypto.
And that right there, that was the marketing genius. See, Celsius wasn't just another company. It was the anti-bank, the hero. Banks take your money and give you basically nothing in return. Celsius? Oh, they claimed they'd give 80% of their revenue right back to you, the community. It was a story people were desperate to believe. And this is the real human cost. This quote, written by a customer to the bankruptcy court, it just cuts through all the corporate speak and the market charts. These weren't just numbers on a balance sheet. This was people's entire financial security. Savings built up over a lifetime just wiped out, gone in an instant.
Okay, let's go back to that central claim. Safety. Mashinsky didn't just say Celsius was safe. No, he went further. He claimed it was safer than a bank. Why? Because in his words, we have less risk. But behind that confident curtain, a very, very different reality was taking shape.
Now this was a bedrock promise, a cornerstone of their entire risk management claim. An unsecured loan means there's no collateral. It is pure, unadulterated risk. And Mashinsky, he stood up on stages, he looked into cameras, and he assured customers again and again that Celsius simply did not do it.
But the company's own internal data, well, it tells a chillingly different story. As the crypto market got shakier and more dangerous, Celsius didn't pull back on risk. They floored it. By June of 2022, nearly 2/3 of their entire institutional loan book was completely unsecured, a total direct contradiction of everything he was saying in public.
And here it is. This might be the most devastating lie of them all. Someone asked him directly on Twitter, what happens if you go bankrupt? And his answer was crystal clear. Customers get their coins back, period. But the legal reality, the fine print, the second you put your crypto into their earn program, it wasn't yours anymore. Legally, it became Celsius's property to gamble with however they wanted.
And don't think for a second this was a secret kept from his own team. The Examiner's report from the bankruptcy is full of this stuff. His own executives knew his statements were flat out false. They warned him that what he was saying was dangerous. They were worried he'd be exposed as a liar. And those warnings, they were completely ignored.
So, if the actual lending business was so incredibly risky, what was propping the whole thing up? What was driving the company's insane valuation? Well, the answer lies with Celsius's own crypto token, a thing called CEL, and a concept Mashinsky loved to call the flywheel.
Look, on paper, it sounds brilliant. More users means more assets, which means more profits. Then, Celsius takes those profits, buys its own CEL token to pay you your rewards. That buying pressure drives the price of CEL up, which makes you richer and attracts even more users. It was supposed to be a perfect, self-sustaining machine of success. But this internal message from the company's own chief revenue officer, it just blows the whole thing wide open. The flywheel wasn't a self-sustaining machine. It was being manually cranked with millions of dollars. The value wasn't real. He says it right there. The value was fake. They were spending $8 million a week or more just to stop the token's price from completely collapsing. $558 million. That is the total amount Celsius spent buying its own token. But the real question, the absolutely crucial one, is where did that money come from? The investigation found the chilling answer. It came from customer deposits. They were taking your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and using it to artificially pump the price of their own company token.
And just look at what all that spending did. The value of the CEL tokens held by Celsius itself explodes. It goes from almost nothing to over $1.5 billion. But this wasn't real wealth. It was an illusion, a house of cards built with other people's money.
And it wasn't just the top brass who knew something was deeply wrong. In April 2022, just before the collapse, a specialist working inside the company saw what was happening, saw them using customer funds to buy CEL, and described it in 2 chilling words. Very Ponzi-like. So, while the company was rotting from the inside, while it was burning through customer money to prop up what insiders called a dead token, its founder was quietly making his own escape plan. And this was the final gut-wrenching betrayal.
You just have to look at the timeline. It is absolutely damning. In May, as the markets are starting to panic, Mashinsky gets on camera and tells everyone, "We have billions of dollars in liquidity." At that exact same time, he was secretly pulling millions of his own money out. 10 million here, another 8 million there, all while telling you, his customer, to stay calm, that your funds were safe. And then, on June 12th, the gate slammed shut for everyone but him.
And over the course of this entire scheme, while he was often publicly claiming he wasn't selling a single token, Mashinsky personally cashed out at least $48 million from selling CEL tokens, the very same token his company was using customer money to artificially inflate.
A fraud this big, this brazen, it couldn't just fade away. The collapse triggered lawsuits, a massive bankruptcy, and finally, a criminal investigation that brought a final, dramatic reckoning for AlexMashinsky.
In the end, after being arrested and charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, and commodities fraud, the justice system handed down its sentence. 12 years. 12 years for a scheme prosecutors called one of the biggest financial frauds in recent history.
And when it was all over, the U.S. Attorney's Office sent a very clear message. Innovation is not a free pass for deception. A new technology doesn't just erase old laws. The fundamental rules against fraud, well, they still apply no matter what you're selling.
The story of Celsius is a brutal, devastating, cautionary tale. And it forces us to ask a really difficult question, one that goes way beyond crypto. When someone is promising you the world, something that sounds just a little too good to be true, in a world full of hype and promises of revolution, who do you actually trust? And how can you ever really be sure?